Hi. Oh my gosh, I am so excited what we're going to do next. I'm introducing you to Shelley, and we're new friends and yet deeply connected because the work that we do in the world is similar and different. And what I love and what like on her website, she shares about it, and I want to read it because I want to get it exactly correct, because language is important, right? It's the language of transformation. Is women who are struggling behind the scenes with anxiety and depression. And we all do that. I mean, we all have that at some point, seasonal, all the time. It's there for us. And what I love is that we're bringing it to the forefront. We're talking about this in such a way that we get to transform, and this is thriving and flourishing. And how do you get to do that? So Shelley, thank you so much for saying yes to this, to saying yes to showing up today.
No, Catt, it was a big yes for me, because in my psychotherapy practice, I work with creative women, and oftentimes they'll pull out their smash book and say, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. And so when you contacted me, I thought, yes, this is wonderful. And it's just so neat for me to delve into your work and see what you're doing and get a real feel. And I get a feel from it from other women that I talk to. So it's definitely a movement you've created, and it's so lovely to be with you.
Oh, thank you. And today we get to witness your way of expression and your way, and bring it into the world for everyone else today, in what we're doing. And so we're going to do this slightly differently, what Shelley and I are going to do, which is to start off asking her the question of how do you define it? And then I'm going to turn it over to Shelley for her to take us there. And along the way, I'll be asking questions and just fully turning this over to you to share with us. So let me start out. So how do you define thrive and flourish?
Okay, well, for me, I've been looking at the deeper meaning of balance, which is sort of finding right measure. And there's a bit of a backstory to that, because first of all, just to go way back, about 5 years ago, I decided I really needed to reset my nervous system. I was struggling with a lot of anxiety, and it was very habitual. I was burnt out. And so I really started to do a lot of meditation and resetting my nervous system, and became very fine-tuned about it. And so I was learning to rest more. And when I recognized I was in fight flight, I had methods to bring myself back to calm. And then last year, I was getting ready for a long, cold Canadian winter, and I had my stack of psychology books that I wanted to read, and I was planning on resting. And about a year ago, around this time a year ago, my small little Canadian course platform notified me, and they said, we can't make it anymore. We have to close down. So I had about 30 courses, and I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lessons on there. And so I stuck my stack of books aside, and I sort of put my nose down, and I started to work. And I do have a full-time psychotherapy practice. So this was all on the side. It was evenings, it was weekends. And I just didn't even have time to hire anybody. I had a couple of months to get it all off and to get a new course platform. And so I just worked and worked and worked, and really moved to a much more complicated course platform, had a huge learning curve, and I just pretty much didn't sleep much all of last year. So when I took my holiday break, I pretty much slept through Christmas, really. I just slept and slept and slept and slept all day, and long nights. And I didn't realize how out of balance and how tired I was. So I have been coming back to balance now, and balance, as I said, it's kind of like the right measure of things, the right measure of work, the right measure of play, the pleasure, food, rest, that kind of thing. And so how I see balance is that I think we all go out of balance temporarily. And if we catch ourselves when we get to that unbalanced place, it's almost a deeper rebalancing. So for me, just given the example of the course platform closing, you know, I was satisfied. I was in my little introverted self, and it was all very simply laid out. But the deeper balance is now that I, on my new course platform, I have, you know, just a sort of a deeper offering. It's more mature. It's more up-leveled. It's much more of a sophisticated system. And so now I'm coming out of that very, very deep unbalancing and into a new balancing. But through the process of that, you know, I struggled with some health challenges. I was having bronchial issues, just kind of this low grade that didn't stop me from working, but it was just sort of there. And so I've been really rebalancing my health as well. So that's sort of how I'm playing with flourishing and thriving, is just intuitively sensing into kind of what I need to eat and when I need to rest and when I need to work. And so I'm actually kind of going very intuitive and slow. And of course, it changes over time too, right? So when I was in my 40s, I was working full-time in healthcare in an art therapy program. I was studying, doing counseling training on nights and weekends, and I was just going for it. But I can't work like that anymore. Balance is different for me now. So I need a lot more rest. I think we all do as we get older, right?
So am I hearing that? I love this. First of all, I hear disruption.
Yes.
You know, and disruption is horrible, and it's our great uplifter.
Yes,
right?
it
It's our
is.
great up leveler. Disruption, however it comes, is horrible. And so so what I'm hearing is that the disruption actually created flourishing for you.
Yes, in the end, it has. Yes,
Yes, I'm
absolutely.
hearing that.
Yeah.
And who would have thought, you know,
Yeah. Oh, it felt like a disaster. Yeah, at the time.
And moving, and you know, and the work of moving 300 or so videos is just and so anyways, that's what I'm hearing about flourishing. And then the balancing piece is the balancing piece, and I'm just throwing this out, is the balancing piece how you're measuring that you're flourishing?
Well, it's I love the term right measure, because it's not something that you can, it's not like a logical left brain thing where, you know, where you take out a ruler and say, like, I need 8 hours of sleep a night or else I'm not balanced. It's like some nights we need 4 hours, some nights we need 10 hours. It's like it's very much an intuitive flourishing. So right measure, we tend to think left brain or cognitive mind, but it's really an intuitive right measure. It's like really sensing. And like I said, you know, when I was in my 40s, I could do, I mean, I was just doing an intense amount of work, and I was able to just keep going with that. Now I'm noticing that, oh no, my health is, you know, you kind of get one sort of house in order or one area of your life in order, and then it sort of unbalances the other, right? And so it's sort of like that. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm very dedicated now. I'm very dedicated to cleansing. I've got my nervous system in order. I kind of mastered my nervous system in a sense, because it was very dysregulated at one time. And now I want to master my physical health. And so I feel really passionate about cleansing and, you know, whole foods and that kind of thing. Because all last year it was just like, you know, we were ordering in, and I was drinking lots of, you know, caffeine, and, you know, to get all of that extra work done, and that took a toll. So that balancing or flourishing of my business was a real big push, and it's been wonderful. But then that unbalanced my health, and I think we're always working with all of these moving parts, aren't we?
Yes. I've heard someone explain it that when we're moving like this, something's going to spin out.
Yeah,
something's going to spin out.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great segue for you to take us into your zone of excellence and start with your process.
Okay, well, I'm going to switch my camera because we're going to do a spontaneous collage together. And so I just have one magazine. I always like to intuitively choose a magazine. I haven't even looked inside. I just go to my shelf and I intuitively pick one. And so this exercise is called the Next Step Collage, and it's from the final chapter of my new Kindle book called Collage for Self-Discovery. So what we're going to do here is just spontaneously choose words and images. And we're going to set a little bit of an intention today. I know you're from the intentional creativity movement, Catt. And so the intention we're setting today as we're choosing images, just a light intention, but it's just the question, what is my next step? So as you sort of repeat this question, what is my next step? You're going to intuitively notice words and images that stand out. And so I've purposely chosen quite a inspiring magazine. This is a sort of a glossy interior design magazine. Sometimes when I'm wanting to work with bigger ideas, I'll go with a kind of a glossy magazine. Sometimes the next step can involve emotional healing. And for that, I would recommend magazines would have imagery that are just a little more emotional, not so glossy and perfect. I like National Geographics for healing imagery, shadow imagery. So sometimes we need to grow forward and sometimes we need to heal back. That's how I see it. So what is my next step is kind of a growing forward, creative vision, kind of a collage. And so collage, as I teach it, is sort of the way I say it is it's a form of conscious projection. And so most people unconsciously project their emotional material onto other people. And so this is just a way of just making the deeper unconscious visual. And I know you do this in your work too, Catt. So just going into the right brain and the left brain, the logical brain, which I think of as our sort of our survival brain, it tends to think in terms of safety. And whenever we're trying to be safe, we usually think in terms of limitation. And so spontaneous collage really draws upon the right brain. And this right brain intuitive kind of listening reveals the emerging growth edge always. So in a way, every spontaneous piece of art or collage is kind of a next step collage in a sense, because it's always sort of revealing what's next. And I like to teach in my course in my book, Collage for Self-Discovery, doing just a simple intuitive collage every day, just to check into what is my next step today, right? So what is my just next little thing I need to know or what have you. And sometimes, you know, we get kind of these larger sort of sometimes overwhelming life visions. Sometimes we can sort of think of a huge purpose or something that we want to actualize in the world. And so it is possible to do a larger life vision collage too. However, even a larger life vision has thousands and thousands and thousands of little steps. So what we're doing today on this small collage, I'm doing an 8.5 by 11 collage, is we're just looking for the next little step. And I often recommend for a larger life vision collage, you might want to do a great big collage with lots and lots of images. And it's helpful to kind of get a larger picture with more sort of real estate to put a lot of imagery on. But because I'm doing a small collage, I'm not going to be able to fit a lot of information.
And when you're saying about next step, what I'm hearing is, what is my next step to thrive and flourish?
Yes, beautiful. Let's add that, because that's what we're dedicating this to. It's
Because what is it that I, is, yeah.
yes, exactly.
Because I'm grounding into the places where I am flourishing. Like, where I'm flourishing right now is because of the summit. I'm flourishing in relationship. Right. I get to have all these
Oh,
incredible conversations with um, women who are out in the world. Women who are out in the world changing people's lives, risking
yes.
and in deep conversation with everyone. So right now
Yeah.
I'm really flourishing in that area.
Oh,
And where I'm not flourishing is with local relationships.
uh-huh. That can happen. That can happen in the online world. Yes, indeed. Isn't that interesting?
And
Yes.
so so my question today is like, what is my next step? I've looked at, the areas. And one of the things that I did is I have sent out a little, forgive me, everyone, I've got a lot of stuff down here on my desk. One of the things that I sent out to you all is a wheel of life circle, which if you
Oh,
haven't filled it out, which supports where you might be thriving and where you might be flourishing. And it really gives us a real quick picture of where it is, where we're at.
oh, I
And
love that, Catt. That's great.
so I'll drop that here in the chat so that you could pull that up and take a look at that also. If you're not clear on where it is that you might be flourishing and thriving or not, wherever that may be.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, it very much speaks to us both talking about, for me, my business is flourishing, but my health needs an upgrade. And I do love what you said about, you start to develop friendships online and you start to find all these people that are like you around the world. And then your local community is it's kind of like a not much happening sort of locally is I really relate to that. In fact, I'm always surprised, like I'll go to a dance class or I'll go to the chiropractor and somebody will recognize me from online in my hometown.
Yeah.
And yet I don't really know very many people.
Yeah, isn't that, yeah. And
Yeah.
and I think that's so anyways, that's one area. So for me, it's like, what is the next step? What is the next
Yes.
step on creating, relationships where I can have dinner on Friday night?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because you can't very well do that over Zoom, can you?
Well, you
I
can,
guess you
but the energy
could.
is different. Yeah, but the energy is different, right?
Yeah, you could sit in your own separate spaces, but yes, it's so and the world has changed so much in the last couple of years too, so everybody's just kind of getting used to getting together and going out. And certainly, for those of us who've been teaching for a long time, I used to lead in-person collage retreats and
Right.
classes, and it's just a whole different thing, isn't it? Really, it's
Right.
just a whole different feeling online.
And then what also happened, where we also flourished, and for many of you also who've been online also with us, is that you've created relationships across the world that you never had before.
Exactly. That's a
Right.
flourishing.
We didn't have relationships with people,
Yes.
in Europe and all over the world that we now have.
Yes, it's so exciting. What I love about the world and what I've always loved about the internet is I got on the internet about 15 years ago, and I think when we start to express our really, really, really pure uniqueness, it's actually sometimes kind of hard to find people like ourselves in our city or our town. And I've always said it's really interesting to consider that there might be one of us in many cities, but across the world, right? And so now we have this opportunity to meet each other in our sort of uniqueness, and that's a really interesting thing that's happened with the internet. I had a larger life vision many years ago I'm just laughing because I intuitively chose this magazine. I've been talking about health and wellness, and I keep getting all these words, health and wellness. It's so profound. But years ago, when I first got on the computer, like, and you know all about computers, Kat, you're a software designer, and so I guess that was about 15 years ago. And I was walking on the mountain one day, and I got this huge download to teach e-courses. And at the time, I didn't know what an e-course was. And I've always been a big fan of, kind of following each step, next step, next step. And so moved to the city. I got a job in an art therapy program in healthcare. And then I was building this business that I have now on the side. And so in order to actualize this vision of teaching e-courses, I've had to take thousands and thousands of steps. And so I would be at work and I, would get this little idea. Okay, well, go change your banner on your blog and go home and write about this and go do this and that. Right. And so I did, and I followed each little step that came every day, usually one or two, very doable. So this is really possible for everybody, just to follow one little next step. And, that is how I built my best life, right? So that's where this collage exercise was inspired from, was I would just listen for, and sometimes even create a collage on my lunch hour, because I worked in a studio. So that was nice. I'm going to start to glue. Have you started to glue yet, Kat?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. I have just tons and tons and tons of words today, that's the way it goes sometimes. I like words in collages because they sort of bring peace to the logical left mind, in that the logical left mind likes words, and so the right brain likes images. And so sometimes I just like to appease my left brain, because if it helps the left brain to sort of anchor what the imagery might be saying. And so typically, yes. And in a spontaneous collage too, I'd like to just lay down some background. I just have a couple of images here just to fill the white space, but that's not necessary. I just like to layer on top. I know you're a big layer person.
Oh yeah.
Catt,
so. And I love that. I love, because also language is the technology. I think it's one of the, I've heard it said, language is the technology of transformation. And I believe that's half true. Because I believe the other part of transformation is image and color, like we're doing right now. I don't think it's just one thing, because as you pointed out, it's got to be left brain, right brain.
It does. We have to have both. We have to have both to function, right? The left brain, I basically see it as our ego, our survival self, the one that sort of puts the roof over our head and earns the money so that we can eat and all of that. And then the right brain is our intuition. It's very connected to our emotional life. It's very connected to our soul. So, but we have to have both, because sometimes, if we're too soul imbued and we don't have the practical light side of life, or creative, same thing, and don't have the practical side, grounding us and helping us to be here, it's very unbalancing. And then people who are too logical and too left brains lose access to the deeper meaning and the deeper intuition that comes from the right brain, or the creative brain, as we would say, intuitive brain.
And I like how, because this is missing for me, like I do not want to go into my left brain very much, because it's not always my friend,
Yes,
always my friend. And it's not always my, excuse me, having a little cat issue here. It's not always my friend. But what you pointed out that is so powerful is how I can, and and I also talk a lot about making friends with the critic, right? Critic 101, making friends with the critic. But what I hadn't thought about until you just shared now, which is a point of flourishing and thriving and flourishing, is making friends through language.
Oh, beautiful. What a great connection there. That's
Yes,
amazing. Yes,
yes, what you
yes.
just shared, how that,
Oh, I love that. Ah.
yes,
I love that because I really, that's a big part of my work is wanting the left brain and the right brain to be friends.
yes,
Yeah, because as creatives, we can tend to want to, um, go all in for the right brain sort of visionary experience. And but the words do help uh, the left brain to kind of get on board with the process. It's just great. It's like, okay, so there's images here and there's words. There's left brain and there's right brain.
because as a right, as somebody who's super comfortable in the right brain, I can get very ungrounded.
Yes, yes, yes. I often think about Julia Cameron. Years ago, I read her autobiography. What a fantastic memoir she wrote. But she got
Mm.
so far into her creative right brain, she started to channel music and opera, and she actually had basically a psychotic break because she wasn't eating, she was just drinking
Oh,
coffee.
yes, yes,
Yeah, so
yes.
we really have to
Oh, yes.
really have to pay attention to our human physical survival needs. It's very, very important to get those systems in place.
Yes, I thought I haven't read it, but I did read it because, yeah, what she points out is that when you are visited by a new creative spirit,
Yes.
it's what I remember her saying that because that has happened to me.
Me
That's the
too.
beginning of smash booking, cosmic smash booking that happened because the spirit doesn't need to eat, sleep, pay
No.
bills,
Yeah.
and you're taken, it's new and it's, yeah. So
Super heightening, I've gone into those spaces too. And, I always used to call it, don't let yourself get abused by the muse, because the muse needs to know, I need to sleep. I need to eat. I need to, it doesn't necessarily recognize that. And, actually, Liz Gilbert speaks so beautifully on that topic as well,
yes.
right? So yeah, it's so seductive and it's so far above the mundane, and it's so exciting, to have all these creative ideas downloading, and you just want to live there. Who cares about eating? Right?
It's so true. So I want to stop and ground that we're talking about Elizabeth Gilbert and her book called
Creative magic.
Believe in Magic. I will
Creative
creative
magic.
It is the best book on creativity anywhere.
Yes.
Best book.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the link here with the name of that book is. So if you're looking for something about creativity, it's a fast read, very clear, very powerful.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with Cameron, she is known for
morning pages,
rampage writing. She's known for morning pages. She's been around a very long time. Has made it.
Yeah, The Artist's Way, the very first.
There it is.
Yeah, for you and I who've been in the creativity field for a long time, that was 20 years ago that she wrote The Artist's Way.
Oh my God, really?
That was a long time ago. That was one of the first creativity books. There was Sark and there was Julia Cameron, and it was wonderful. It's so exciting when those books started to come onto the market. Really opened me up, and I'm sure you too, to like the possibilities of.
And I'm glad you brought up Sark, because Sark.
Yes.
Rainbow.
Oh yes. Oh
yes.
Yeah.
When her books
She's so many, so many books.
And I think I'm going back to the early 70s, probably, her books. And and we stand on the shoulders of these giants. Sark, Julia Cameron,
yes,
and for me it's Shelley Sophia with with
Oh,
her,
absolutely.
you know, with her
Her huge lineage there.
yeah, huge lineage. That's all part of, you know, my lineage was Suhoya Sellers
Yes.
and Shiloh and her mom, Karen. And
Mhm.
so I want to ground a minute here while you're continuing to cut out, and I'm looking at my things here. As I want to ground into the intention of why we're here. We're
ExpressiveArtWorkshops.com.